This is how I disappeared. A Death Note Podfic written by TzviaAriella. Chapter 2. Light Yagami. Death by Firing Squad. On March 15th, 2005, delivers a final speech, including an admission of being Kira but no mention of notebooks, Shinigami, or any details of Kira's powers. As the tribunal that condemned him looks on, during that speech, forgets the word machinations, and looks to the tribunal member third from the right for help. Afterward, is put to death without complications or delays. Elle stared at the paper, reading and rereading the words until they ran together on the page. Light's death had become irrevocable the moment Elle had written his name, but the details hadn't. He still had 3 minutes left to alter them if he chose. Do I choose? He read the description again, lips pursed in thought. It would satisfy the tribunal, certainly. He'd had to think long and hard to come up with a scenario specific enough to constitute proof, but unremarkable enough that no onlookers would notice anything odd. Light would notice, most likely, but that couldn't be helped. He really would have been happier as an idiot. I could sympathize with him on that. 2 minutes left. He'd wavered on how much to manipulate Light's and how much humiliation or dignity to grant him, but in the end, he'd mostly left the boy alone. Making sure the execution would run smoothly was in everyone's best interest, and precluding Light from dropping any bombshells about the nature of his powers was a necessary precaution. Light admitting to the crime was necessary too, both for the tribunal and for the public. But dictating the content of Light's final words was beyond that felt like a violation. Elle had toyed with specifying that Light would maintain his composure through the ordeal, but in the end he decided against it. He brought this on himself. Let the world see Kira as he really is, for better or for worse. Light had chosen the manner of his death. He could choose how he met that death as well. 1 minute. Elle glanced from the clock to the paper in his hand, reading the words over yet again. Did Light ever put this much thought into what he was doing? Or did he just jot names down and move on? I suspected the latter, but he couldn't be certain. Light had lied as easily as he breathed and nearly as incessantly, but when he'd lost the memories, his horror at killing had been genuine. Or was it? Just how much of you was a lie? Lied? 50%? 70? 95%? Was it worth it? 30 seconds. Setting the page down again, Elle scrawled 4 words, then set the pen aside. You're done? Watery asked. It's done. Pinching the page gingerly between his fingers, Elle held it up for Watery to take. Lacquer it and let it dry. I'll take it to the tribunal tomorrow. Of course. Will you be staying this evening? No. He stepped down from the chair, glancing one last time at the clock. There's somewhere I need to go first. A pall of twilight hung over the Yagami house as Elle rang the bell, his composure even more slumped and uncomfortable than usual. The Wattery had offered to come along, Elle had declined, driven by some quick of pride or self-flagellation he couldn't define. I'm not cut out for this, damn it! It shouldn't be my job. Thumbing his lip, he pressed the doorbell a second time. The door opened a crack, and a pair of brown eyes peeked out. Hello? Sayu. Is your father home? She nodded. I'm here on your brother's behalf. May I speak to him? The door closed, and he heard Sayu dash off through the house, calling for her father. Elle sighed and glanced back at the car, wondering if he shouldn't bring Watari in with him after all, before he could make up his mind one way or the other. Soichiro appeared in the doorway. At the sight of Elle, the older man's face relaxed, and he offered a wary smile. Miyazaki, he said. I was afraid you'd be someone else. Afraid. That's an interesting word choice. Alden returned a smile. Light asked me to come. May I come in? Of course. Soichiro stepped aside to let the detective enter. Removing his battered sneakers, Al set them carefully aside and looked around. Though he had never been inside it, he knew the house well, a familiarity born of the days he'd spent spying through cameras in the Yagami household. Soichiro was so certain his family was innocent. But when I saw Light's reaction to the 1,500 investigators come to Japan announcement, I knew. And now his father knows it too. El wondered if anyone had ever told Sachiko and Sayu about the cameras, but he didn't intend to ask. He had far more pressing issues on his mind. Sayu peeped around the living room entrance at him. When he made eye contact, she vanished. Is there someone we can speak in private? He asked. Soichiro nodded. Follow me. There was no slip of paper in Light Yagami's door, but the room beyond was all but unchanged. Someone had dusted the bookshelves and fixtures, but the books themselves were untouched. Nor had anyone tampered with the array of pens, textbooks, and papers atop Light's desk. A lone textbook, Introduction to Criminal Justice, sat atop the nightstand. A thin slip of a notebook paper marking what Light had left off in his studies. Light's book bag leaned drunkenly against the side of the desk, zipper ajar, and the spring jacket hung over the back of the chair where its owner had left it nearby a year before. Though the closet door, Elle could glimpse an orderly row of shirts and khakis, unworn and unabandoned. This room is haunted. Spotting Elle's reaction, Soichiro gave an apologetic smile. We left everything the way it was, he said quietly, running a hand along the back of his chair. Sachiko can't bear to change it. When I walk in here, it almost feels like he's coming back. Like he might walk in any moment with his book bag, asking about my latest case. He shook his head. An old man's folly, I suppose. There was something almost defensive in Soichiro's tone, as if daring the detective to mock him. Al shrugged. You're his father. It's only natural. Natural? I failed him, Ryozaki. I didn't know my own son. There's nothing natural about that. Releasing the chair, Soichiro turned to face the detective. You saw him? This morning, yes. How did he look? Terrible. You haven't visited him? No. Sachiko goes every weekend. Sayu too. But I can't see him like this. I can't. I don't know what I'd do. There's nothing much you could do, Mr. Yagami. There would be a divider between him and you. As an ex-cop, you should. Yes, I know how visitation works. It's not him I'm worried about, Ryuzaki, it's me. Which Rose's face tightened. I failed him as a father, as a cop. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison if he lives that long, and I failed him. How am I supposed to live with that? Elle thumbed his lip. Odd. Light was under the impression that he'd failed you, given the circumstances. I'm inclined to side with him. He told you that? He's concerned about you, whatever crimes he's guilty of. Filial impiety isn't among them. He should be worried about it himself. So Ichiro let out a heavy breath and sat on the edge of Light's bed, clasping his hands in his lap. Well, tell me, tell you, you wouldn't come here just to make my son happier, let alone ask to speak in private. That's something you came to tell me, and I won't like it. Am I wrong? Oh, I see why he gets his deductive ability. Am I wrong? No. Al forced himself to look the ex-policeman in the face. The tribunal reached a decision, sentencing him to death. Soichiro flinched, his head drooping. So soon? Are you surprised? No, I'm not. I hope they might. For my sake. He trailed off, but Al could see Soichiro's thoughts as clearly as his own. Light had been eerily calm when El had first confronted him with the evidence. The second notebook he'd retrieved from the shallow grave in the woods, along with a note from Light to Misa commanding El's death. But the moment someone had pulled out handcuffs, the murderer had bolted, knocking Aizawa aside and Matsuda clear of his feet in his desperation to escape. But when Soichiro had set himself in front of the doorway, cracking his son's name like a whip, Light hesitated. Not for long, but long enough. The boy had gone down screaming, pleading his innocence, even as he was dragged away, but his father hadn't moved. To Elle's mind, that was the cause for pride. But Soichiro had resigned the force the next day. I thought he chose justice over his son, but he didn't. He was hoping for mercy. Looking at the man now, all the detective could see was guilt. Your cooperation and testimony were taken into account, said Elle, as were a number of other factors. In the end, reassuring the world that a threat is over and deterring any future Death Note users were considered more pressing concerns. They can't do that without making a martyr of him. It's a mistake. He knows more about the notebook than anyone alive. If they're so concerned about future notebooks, they could be a resource. The Shinigami gave us a very thorough account of the Death Note's workings, as did Light. Whatever information there is to have, I already have it. But if I could talk to them, Light said the same thing. His name was written into the Death Note this morning, Mr. Yagami. Oh, said El calmly, avoiding any mention of who had written it. His sentence won't be publicized until after the execution for obvious reasons, but there's nothing to be done. Practically speaking, he's already dead. For a long moment, Light's father said nothing, then softly asked, how long does he have? A week. A week, Soichiro echoed. What happens to him now? I know. What is handled like a Japanese case, he would have been kept in ignorance until the day of the execution, and you wouldn't hear about it until afterwards. Given the circumstances, however, the tribunal wants to avoid any accusation of secrecy or undue cruelty. He'll remain in solitary confinement until the time comes, and you and your family will be given a chance for final goodbyes. They may move him to a cell nearer the chamber, though not entirely sure. And then, after his death has been confirmed, the body will be released to you. It's not what I meant. Ex-policeman opened his eyes, brown and swimming with barely contained emotions. What will they do to my son? El scratched his upper leg, uncomfortable. They'll shoot him. 5 marksmen, 4 bullets. If he doesn't die within 10 minutes, he'll be given a mercy shot to the head. Though Light did presumably share half of his father's chromosomes, Elle had rarely noticed much similarity between them, either physically or in temperament. But as he watched the elder Yagami hunch over in grief, face in his hands, there was no denying the resemblance. If I didn't know better, I think he was the one about to die, not Light. And again, he probably wishes he were. El had never known that kind of attachment to family, but he recognized other people did. Unsure how to respond, he looked away, trying to give the ex-policeman the semblance of privacy. There's no good way to tell a man he's going to lose a child. At last, Soichiro straightened, his eyes moist. Light nose? El nodded. How did how did he take it? Poorly at first, but he accepted it. I think his main concern was for you. He thinks I'll volunteer to shoot him, doesn't he? Grimacing, Soichiro shook his head. Idiot boy, idiot boy. In his defense, said El, you've done it before. To protect him, to save him, not to. Yes, I know. El sighed inwardly, berating himself for saying anything. An old-time joke. I apologize. Soichiro didn't look reassured. I've never been any good at lying, but that in that car he believes me, Ryuzaki. Do you have any idea how hard it was to see that kind of fear in my son's eyes? To hear him beg for his life? To look him in the eyes afterwards, knowing he believed, really believed, that I would shoot? I imagine it was difficult. Difficult? I went through hell to prove Light's innocence. I put Light through hell. I promised I wouldn't leave without my son, and I didn't. And now I can't follow him to prison this time, El. I can't keep my promise. He's staring down a gun for real this time, and I can't. I can't. He rubbed his eyes. They're going to shoot my son. My child, they're going to take him away terrified and hand him back to me in a box. And I can't stop them. Do you have any idea how that feels? No, I don't. If it helps anything, the guns weren't forced on him. I gave him a choice. He chose to be shot. A year ago, he was choosing a college, for God's sake. He's still a child. He's 19. In most countries, he'd already be of age. 19. Suchram used. I keep forgetting, yes. His birthday day was last week. Sachiko took him a little cake. Al frowned. May Lila do that? No, the guards broke it apart to check that she wasn't smuggling anything, then confiscated it anyway. She was devastated. Soichiro shook his head, his shoulders slumping. My son's last birthday, and they wouldn't even let him have that. Not even the crumbs. You'll be allowed a last visit before the end. I can get permission for her to bring him something then, if she wants. She will. Of course she will. God. I have to tell Sayu. He bit his lip, blinking furiously. Should have let him run. No, you shouldn't. Wouldn't have made a difference. If nothing else, we had the death note. You wouldn't have gotten far. I suppose you're right, but even so, I handed him over to this. My own son. What kind of father am I? Just one. One who cares about doing what's right, not what easy. Hesitantly, Elle reached out toward Soichiro's shoulder, then reconsidered and drew his hand back. You have nothing to blame yourself for. Alright. Of course you're right, I only. Soichiro closed his eyes. Thank you, Ryuzaki. Elle nodded. The tribunal will contact you tomorrow, I expect. There may be some paperwork to sort out regarding transferal of the body. I didn't think it was my place to ask Light if he had any preferences, but he'll want his ashes buried with ours, I imagine. I'll talk to Chico tonight, make the arrangements tomorrow. Light shouldn't have to worry about that. And there's the difference. Light had tried to run from the blame and hard decisions. His father shouldered them. Wasn't fair comparisons. Perhaps Light had 30 years less life experience and maturity, facing a punishment that would terrify men twice his age, but Elle couldn't help making it. One blames himself too little, the other far too much. I doubt either will ever see the truth of it. The son wouldn't have much time to dwell on his mistakes, but the father had a lifetime of regrets and what ifs, assuming either Yagami survives the week. That's another consideration. Elle said he's made a last request. 4. He wants a task force to shoot him. Soichiri blanched. I see. I already spoke to Watari, and he agreed. The others, I told Light I'd ask him, but I thought I ought to speak with you first. I'm not included in this, I assume? Explicitly excluded, actually. Explicitly, of course. Pressing a knuckle to his mouth, Soichiro closed his eyes in thought. Did the tribunal approve this? Not yet, but they will. I need Aizawa, Matsuda, and Mogi's agreement first. You won't get it. Unless I give my blessing. Idiot boy. All the things to ask for. Why would he ask for this? For you. Because he trusts us. Us? Us. I gave him my word too. A parade of emotions flickered behind the ex-policeman's eyes, too fast and fleeting for Elle to identify. Rising from the bed, Soichiro walked towards the desk, interposing his back between his expression and the detective. I lied to Sachiko, he said at last. About the cameras, about the case, about light. All those months he was under surveillance, and I never told her he was a suspect. After I told her about the arrest, she said she'd heard him yelling in his room the night of your first broadcast, but thought it was letting off stress. Once light disappeared, though, with that cock and bull story about him moving out because we were fighting, she began to wonder. But then I was home to dinner. He laid his hand on the chair back, gripping the shoulder of the jacket as if it were a lifeline. Just tell me one thing. If I'd noticed sooner, if we caught him sooner, could we have saved him? The lie rolled smoothly off Elf's tongue. I don't know. For a long moment, Soichiro was silent, staring down at his son's empty chair. I've never understood him, Ryazaki. How he thinks, why he does what he does. But if Light asks for something, he has his reasons. I know that much. He always does. He let out a low breath. When were you planning to talk to them? The task force tomorrow morning. The sooner everything's in order, the better. I'll come with you. I appreciate it. I'm not doing it for you. There was a finality to the words, a numb weariness that told Elle the conversation was over. I'll come by tomorrow morning then. I'll call ahead when we're close. Turning to go, he paused in the doorway. I'm sorry for your loss. The platitude felt small and insufficient on his breath, but I could think of nothing else to say. Fleeing the haunted room, he slunk down the stairs, eager to be done. You're from the tribunal, aren't you? Judge Chico stood in the living room, twisting a dish towel nervously in her hands. Petite as she was, she looked almost drunken, a shriveling leaf the barest wind might blow away. I am, said Elle. You've met my son? Talked to him? I have. She bit her lip. He's a good boy, isn't he? Wouldn't say that. He's very polite. He's a good boy, she repeated more firmly. Those men you work with from the tribunal. He told me they won't even see him. They think he's a monster. Can you believe it? If they just see him, talk to him, how can they judge him if they won't see him? They're doing their best, I'm sure. It's a difficult case. They're cowards. They ought to talk to them if they ask. I know he's sorry for what he did. The first time I went to that awful prison, his face was covered in bruises. Did you know that? I asked him what happened, if he was alright, but he waved me off. I'm fine, Mom, he told me. Don't worry about me. Worry about Dad and Sayu. They deserve more. He never said a word about what happened to him. Not a word. And then he asked if I was alright. Her face contorted, lined with grief and worry. He's not a monster. Tell them, please. Whatever he's done, he isn't that. I don't believe in monsters, Mrs. Yagami. Only human beings, but yes, I'll tell them. Uncomfortable, Elle stared at the door, finding the urge to simply run. Your husband's upstairs. You should talk to him. Sachiko nodded, her expression softening. I will. Would you would you like some tea before you go? No, thank you, I should be going. He opened the door, but a voice drew him back. Sir? Yes. She wrung the dishcloth in her hands. Thank you for giving him a chance. For giving him a chance. Sachiko's expression was earnest, blissfully unaware of the irony of her words. She'll know soon enough. And once she's upstairs, she'll know. Bitter laughter bubbled up inside him, but Elle swallowed it down, slipping out without a word and shutting the door firmly behind him. The only monster here is me. Huh. And that's the second chapter. Yeah, fair warning about this fic. I read it all in one go, and I think in the chapter after this I started crying, or maybe it was the fourth chapter, but I know by six I was full out bawling, had to take a break. Not really, but like I said, heavy fic. Um, I probably should have included this in the last video, but I didn't know before I uploaded it. But I read each 100 subscribers. Thanks for that, I suppose. Uh, Most of them happened while I wasn't uploading, so algorithms really giving me the sense that uploading regularly helps. That was sarcastic, and I know it does. I do see other statistics. Um, yeah. Um, have a nice one. Drink some water, maybe if you want. If you're listening to this later, maybe take a break. Maybe go for full emotional destruction of yourself. You can do that. It's cathartic. Um, if you do that, I recommend not listening to my outros. Kind of takes you out of it. Um, but thanks for 100 subscribers. Um, have a good one.